I made a huge mistake.
Hi, I'm at my friend Rid's house and he asked me to come over to help fix his Monstera. It used to be the most perfect, amazing, glorious plant, but after a series of unfortunate events and some poor choices, now it looks like this. Rid's original plant was living its best life in his bedroom window. His windows face south, and in Canada, these are hands down the best direction that your windows can face for the most available and intense light. He actually has his replacement Monstera living there now, and it's receiving absolutely amazing light at almost 3,000 foot candles that I'm detecting with my light meter. It's about 1,000 foot candles when the sun goes behind the clouds. So Rid has a thought, oh, maybe we'll move it downstairs to the backyard window, also facing south, receiving great light. Spikes of about 6,000 foot candles in direct sun for part of the day, and around 800 to 1,000 foot candles for the rest of the day until sundown. So then Rid has another thought. My Monstera is doing so well, I think I'll move it again. And this time, well, this is maybe you could tell by my dumb smirk, but the bare minimum Monsteras need is like 100 foot candles, so I'll let you figure out if this was a good choice. Normally when a plant gets to this state, I would just say to throw it out, and actually he's already bought a replacement Monstera, but this one holds some personal significance, so we're actually going to do our best to try to save this plant. So while this plant was getting some of the best lighting in his home, one small change has made it so it's getting significantly less light and has caused such a huge problem with the soil, and if I were to guess, there's a lot of rotting of the roots that's happening inside this plant. That's exacerbated the issue with having poor drainage. This actual pot doesn't have any drainage holes, and it seems to be just using typical Miracle-Gro potting soil. So all of those issues has combined into this plant just slowly turning from a magnificent plant to dying off like this. So our first step is to get this plant out of the soil to actually check what the roots look like. Depending on how they look, that gives us a few options to actually try and salvage this plant. Let's take off this climbing pole, which I don't think is doing much at this point. How long has this been in here?
Since I saw your video on how to put in a pole, when I redid it, I had it sticking upright.
So is that like a couple months or?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay. So this has been in here. If it's just been a couple months, this is like already soft and rotting out. Depending on the type of wood, usually I go for birch or cedar, which is one of the more rot resistant woods. Usually they can take up to 2 to 3 years, but that's only if they have good drainage, so good soil like soil perlite, orchid bark, other things to help aeration, but this has already started rotting within a couple months, so that does not bode well for what's happening inside the soil. The more I look in here, the less hope I have. Oh no. Can you pull it? So I just want to make sure that Rid gets a close-up shot of this. Okay. And here are our roots. Normally, you would hope that a Monstera this size in this big of a pot has 80 to 90% of the roots filled out, but all of this is not root. This is just stem. But these plants are honestly so resilient that there's actually, oh, I was gonna say that there's healthy new growth. You can see the white roots. See, this looks pretty good. What do you think?
It'd be nicer if it was attached to the actual plant.
Another thing to notice when you pull your plants out of soil and they're rotting like this, the root casings will come off. So if you look in close here, you'll see that there's a very thin root when it should be thick, and you can actually pull and slide the entire thing off. And then you're just left with these like spaghetti string roots. So if your plant is doing this at any stage, this is basically like early your plant is rotting. Even if your roots are not soft, even if they don't smell like they're rotting either, they smell completely fine, you can still have an issue with rot. It just depends on how it's going to manifest on the specific plant and depends on how bad it is. Rot is a fungal-like pathogen that is soil-borne. So basically, it is in the plant, on the plant, coming from the soil. So all of this lower section, you run the risk of still maintaining a certain level of that bacteria, that fungus. If we try to reroot all of this stuff, it could just come back again. So what I would suggest is if we cut the plant somewhere along the stem here, higher up from where it was in the soil rotting, we'll treat the stem, we'll treat whatever aerial roots that we have access to. And instead of trying to water propagate it, I think that if we air layer it, that might be a better option for us. So I'm gonna make sure that when we cut the plant, we don't want to take any of this stuff that was below the soil. It's always good to sanitize your cutters, your shears, or your knife. Use rubbing alcohol. And I'm going to take the cutting from here. We'll see what the stem actually looks like on the inside, because if it still looks like it's dark and rotting, then we might need to go up a little bit. Before I start the air layer, I'm going to treat Rid's plant with a fungicide, and I'm using garden sulfur. This should help manage and reduce some of the levels of rot causing bacteria in the plant so that it doesn't return. You can buy a pre-mixed spray or just mix this with water to the directions on the bottle. Most fungicides are either copper or sulfur based on their ingredients. The spray goes directly on the roots and exposed stem of the plant. Usually air layering is done with the plant still in soil, but since we don't really have a healthy plant, this is what we're going to have to do. We just need a Ziploc bag and a rooting medium. I prefer to use a mix of sphagnum moss and tree fern fiber. Wet the media first and start to place it in the bag so that it's touching the aerial roots. I do have videos on air layering that go more in depth, but basically you want this damp media to be consistently touching the aerial roots. This will cause new roots to grow in the bag and give us a fresh start to hopefully plant a healthy cutting into soil. While Rid and I struggle as two grown men to try to put tape on this bag for about 20 minutes, I want to make sure that this kind of plant death never happens to him again. But here's the issue. Look at their home. It's so nice. Look at this. And look, he already has another plant in the corner of death. I've asked my sponsor Soltech to hook Rid and his wife Saima up with the Aspect Pendant Grow Light. While they have thought a little bit about grow lights in the past, they shouldn't have to compromise their home decor. And as homebodies, the warm tone of this 3000 Kelvin light is going to ensure that they can both enjoy their beautiful home without any eye strain and have their plants continue to grow big and strong. While Rid waits for his new grow lights to arrive, he'll keep this consistently moist and make sure that water doesn't pool at the bottom of the bag. If Rid can manage the moisture levels, within a month we should start to see some root growth, which he did. We got our first signs of root and bud growth, but I'm worried. The stem is starting to get darker and darker. We intervened pretty quickly. Well, what we thought was pretty quickly. Oh boy. No. Roots are what grew.
That looks alright on that side. Nice and green.
Yeah.
Thicker than the other one. Oh.
It's gone.
Was it even a root?
Yeah, it was. All this is roots. Oh god.
Yikes.
That's not good. We're gonna have to cut it up
Higher.
way high. Much higher. We cut off the rot, retreating the stem this time with a mix of water and hydrogen peroxide to disinfect the stem. I would not recommend using a higher concentration than 1 part 3% hydrogen peroxide and 6 parts water. We let it sit for about 20 minutes before air layering again.
Oh my gosh, my poor plant, Rid.
It's okay, we have a
That's
plan.
good.
Look at this, look what we did.
Is that all the... Oh, so you did salvage some of that stuff?
Well, I hope that this little trick I thought of will help increase airflow significantly so that the plant won't re-rot. We basically have no usable roots now except for one dry aerial root. That is my biggest concern. The plant won't be able to pull in enough water to support all of the new foliage that it grew. We'll likely see either a bunch of yellowing leaves or wilting of the leaves.
See, Lee? Look at this thing. It's limp. It's looking depressed. It's floppy.
Rid and Sima aren't happy, so as a last resort, I'll do one more cut and root the plant in aquarium soil, which provides a ton of oxygen and water access to the cutting. I don't like using it because it's quite expensive and fish people get mad when you take their soil, but I'm honestly desperate. Rid now just has to keep the soil evenly moist, just like the moss, and if it doesn't start to root now, then we're officially out of luck.
Lee, roots are like coming out of this now. Still okay in here?
So finally, after 8 months, with lots of ups and downs with this plant, it's finally stabilized, produced roots in some aquarium soil, and it is ready to be repot. I'm hoping that Rid has learned his lesson about the importance of actually measuring his light to make sure that his plants stay in an acceptable range. I don't want to see any more plants in dark 16-foot candle corners of his home. And now that his Soltech Aspect grow light is here, let's see how they actually like it.
It's kind of awkward. Okay.
All right. So tell us, what do you like about the light?
I like the fact that it was quite easy to put together. It didn't take too much time. And I think the best part is that it's aesthetically pleasing. It looks really nice in the bedroom. And maybe get another one for downstairs.
Yeah, it's gonna do its job and not kill plants, which means my wife won't kill me. Perfect.
If you could have any plant in that corner, what would it be?
Definitely a birds of paradise. I had one here before and it died on me, probably because of the fact that I didn't have a light fixture like this one. So definitely we'll be replacing this plant with a birds of paradise.
Click the link in the description to get 15% off Soltech's Aspect Grow Light using my promo code KTP2025. If you want to see how this light can actually change your Monstera's leaf size, then check out this video here. See you next time.